Okay, welcome to the show, folks. Just start with a couple of things. Just to let you know what's coming up on the show. At the later, we've got Chris Coles on. Excuse me, got a bit of a cold. We'll be talking with us about drones, the use of drones in the military sense, and the devastation they cause in various countries, mainly in the Middle East. The lives that have been lost, the innocent lives that have been lost through the strikes. Chris will be going into that with us, and hopefully carrying on into the civilian applications of them as well, i.e. surveillance, etc. Just before we do get to that, I'd just like to thank Lisa for their show. As usual, she captures the mood of people, certainly the listeners and everybody at CMR. I am associated with it. With the loss of young Paul Hickson this week. Very sad. I don't really know what more I can say about it because the other hosts have said everything earlier this week on their shows. I'd just like to have my thoughts and obviously my prayers for Paul himself and his family and friends. It's such a waste of life, young life. So as I say, if anybody does want to get in touch with the show, by the way, just email me prisoner@criticalmassradio.co.uk. I'm going to put on the song. While I put on the song, I'll bring Pippa on, and hopefully we get Chris on as well after this. Okay, I'll see you after this one.
You're listening to Critical Mass Radio. Now it's our turn.
Do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of Critical Mass Radio. I believe in free speech for myself and for others, and I intend to reserve the right to free speech for myself and for others.
You're listening to Critical Mass Radio. Now it's our turn.
Okay, folks, welcome back. Hopefully you can hear me a bit better now. I think it was a bit low there. Probably someone in the chat box will call and let me know. We should have on the line Pippa. Hello.
Good evening, George.
How are you, Meryl?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Fine. And hopefully we should have Chris there as well. Hello, Chris.
Hello.
Hi, Chris. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Good evening.
Hi, Pippa.
Hi. Yes, we've got you on the show tonight. I've been talking a little bit about drones, initially from a surveillance point of view, really, with the police forces using them. I know George is in Liverpool, and they did a trial there, didn't they? They had a drone that actually ended up going in the water.
That's
right. So we
Mm-hmm.
sort of talked about that, and it took me to the Civil Aviation Authority website. They have quite a good page of Freedom of Information requests where you can read through. And I noticed there was quite a few Freedom of Information requests there about drones, and that sort of led me on to your website, Chris, which is called Drone Wars UK. How did you have an interest in both sort of civilian and I think military drones as well? How did that start?
Well, I'm somebody who's been involved in researching and campaigning against militarism for many, many years. And about 4 years ago, I was asked to come and speak to a group about the use of drones, and so began to start researching and looking into this issue, and quickly realised that it was a very serious matter. My primary interest is the military use of drones, but you're quite right in saying that it's spreading into civilian use, and it's primarily some of the big military companies that are behind this.
Indeed. On the military side of things, what are the drones like? What, if you can explain to people, because they're unmanned, aren't they?
Well, there are lots and lots of different types and different air vehicles. The word drone itself is the commonly used word. The military and the industry likes to use the term either unmanned aerial vehicle or remotely piloted air vehicle. But drone is what they're commonly known as, and I think reluctantly the military and the industry are beginning to use that term as well. And there are lots and lots of different types, lots of different sizes, from very small nano drones up to the size of civilian aircraft as we would understand them. And basically, drones or unmanned aerial vehicles are aircraft that are remotely piloted from the ground, although increasingly they're being developed to fly autonomously and not be controlled by a pilot on the ground.
Gosh, I hadn't realised that. Have we got any autonomous drones then as a country? Because I know we've got 5 Reaper drones, haven't we? That are in Afghanistan at the moment.
We have 5. The UK military has 5 different types of drones, but we have 5 and just about to have 10 armed Reaper drones in Afghanistan.
And they're being flown out of Nevada at the moment by British RAF.
That's right. So the drones are physically located in Afghanistan or in the US military in Pakistan or Yemen or wherever, but they're controlled via hardened military satellite from bases in the US. But this week, the week that's just passed, the RAF stood up a new drones unit at RAF Waddington in Lincolnshire. So over the next few weeks, RAF pilots will begin controlling the drones that are in Afghanistan from here in the UK.
So those drones are still going to be in Afghanistan, but sort of controlled from here in the UK.
That's right.
Good. So are they moving the pilots that are currently in Nevada across the UK, or are they just training new pilots how to manage drones?
Yes, it's a new unit. The pilots that are in Creek Air Force Base in Nevada, they are RF 39 Squadron. They will gradually, we're told, move back here to the UK. But the squadron that's just been starting to control the drones here in the UK is 13 Squadron, unlucky for some, and they're a completely different unit with new pilots.
So how successful has the UK's drones been in flushing out the Taliban, Al-Qaeda? I mean, it's not something that you see much about in the media, is it? Absolutely
not, and that's one of the real difficulties and real concerns about the use of armed drones, is that we know practically nothing about the impact. We know a lot more about the use of drones by the so-called secretive CIA in Pakistan than we do about the armed drones that the British government, the RAF, are using in Afghanistan. What we do know is that there have been about 350 British drone strikes in Afghanistan. There have been about 340 CIA drone strikes in Pakistan in that same time frame from when the RAF started to use them in June 2008 up until now. We know that there have been somewhere between 2,500 and 3,500 people killed in drone strikes in Pakistan, of which reliable estimates say somewhere between 500 and 900 civilians have been killed, with about 200 children. Those are from reliable reports. There are other reports that say those casualty figures are too low. But the British RAF insist that only 4 civilians have been killed. We've no idea how many, the total number have been killed in British drone strikes, but they claim that 4 civilians have been killed. And either the RAF is better, 100 to 200 times better at this than the US Air Force, or there's something seriously wrong with those figures.
I think the figures speak for themselves, don't they, really? I think the UK military has got something to hide there.
They're literally incredible.
I mean, any civilian death shouldn't happen anyway, but I suppose in war, casualties are inevitable. But there isn't a war in Pakistan. I can understand the military using drones perhaps for surveillance, but don't the Pakistan authorities consider it an act of war? I mean, certainly if somebody had killed over 2,000 UK citizens in the UK, I'm sure we would have something to say about that.
Indeed, and that's partly the trouble with the growth in the use of these unmanned systems, that they're not considered somehow to be a military intervention, or it kind of has lowered the threshold when it comes to military intervention. And early on, when the US began using drones in Pakistan, there is evidence via WikiLeaks that the then dictator, General Musharraf, gave permission to the US to do that. But Musharraf was thrown out in an uprising, and there was a new government there, and the government was absolutely insisting that the US stop their drone strikes. But the US is ignoring that and saying that they have the right to do so. And, many people, not just ourselves, campaigners, but legal scholars, international law experts say that this is completely illegal. The problem is Pakistan does have an air force, and they could, in theory, shoot down the drones, but this would, of course, be very much considered an act of war by the US and would escalate very seriously the war that's taking place.
Gosh, that's quite unbelievable. The deaths are quite staggering, really, and especially with the children involved. It must have an impact. It must have an impact on the way of life for these people, because the drones are that high up you can't necessarily see them or hear them. But I guess one minute everything is essentially fine, and then the next minute there's a huge explosion and people are dead. Is that basically how it works?
Yes, there is different. As I said, there are different types of drones, and the armed drones fly very high, but other surveillance drones are also in use, and they make quite a noise. And people say that that's very frightening, hearing the noise. But also, yes, you're right. What the behaviour that leads to these airstrikes, these drone strikes, the people in Waziristan don't know, they say, what behaviour leads to this drone strike. And so there was a report out very recently, one from an American university called Living Under the Drones, which details in interviews with people from Waziristan the kind of psychological damage that it's doing and the trauma that it's causing. And also here in the UK, MedAct has also brought out a report, a very good report, looking at the kind of health impact, which also talks about the psychological warfare that these drones are causing to the people in Waziristan where they're operating.
So how long have they been under attack from the US drones there?
Since 2004, the first it started under George Bush, and there were about 15 strikes over the first 3 or 4 years, and now that's since President Obama has come into power, he's really ratcheted up the number of strikes, and so that's up to about, as I say, 340 strikes now since 2004.
But because the British government, they caught something, I think it was last week, William Hague had been called, or the Foreign Commonwealth Office had been called to give evidence. There was a guy called Noor Khan, whose father was killed, I think, last March. And he was, is he taking the US to court? And we got called to be complicit because our secret services were basically giving the US drones, or the RAF there, or the Air Force services, sort of information of where to bomb.
No, that's not quite right.
Right, okay.
Noor Khan is suing the UK Foreign Secretary, William Hague, because there is evidence that the UK is supplying what they call targeting intelligence to the US for use in Pakistan, because it's understood in the intelligence circles, I'm not privy to that information, but it's understood that the UK intelligence of what's happening in Pakistan is better than the US. Now, I'm not sure whether that's true or not, but there is certainly some indication that that's happening. And so Reprieve, the organisation led by Clive Stafford Smith, is represented, and Jules Carey, who's with Tucker's, another firm of legal solicitors, are challenging the Foreign Office basically to confirm or deny that they're supplying targeting information for these drone strikes in Pakistan.
Do you know if they confirmed that? Because I hadn't seen any follow-up news articles.
No, the UK government's position and the Foreign Office's position, and William Hague's lawyers are arguing that they cannot confirm or deny this. And the judges have reserved their judgment. It will take 2 or 3 weeks. So I think the court case was last week, so maybe next week or the week after, the judges will decide what happens in this case. I'm not holding my breath with that way.
No, because I guess if he gets a positive ruling, then it opens the floodgates for many other people.
But also it would be challenged on appeal, and these things take an awfully long time.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's murder, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, I think what's happening, the assassination by drones is completely extrajudicial. There's no chance for these individuals who are being targeted to put forward their defence. There is no proper judicial process, and so it's quite proper to call it murder.
So out of all the people they've killed, what are the successes they're claiming? Because I saw some figures I was going to talk about last week that they'd probably only killed about 40 people out of those 3,500 people that were really positive, sort of high risk enemy targets.
It's very difficult to know, and there are various claims, and a number of individuals, for instance, who are supposed to have been killed have turned up alive again.
Right.
So it's very difficult to know. But I mean, there are some individuals certainly who are senior members of Al-Qaeda who have been killed in these drone strikes. But the issue is that a large number of civilians have been killed also. And the fact is that the US is not at war in Pakistan. They do not have the right to assassinate these individuals because international human rights law applies there. So those individuals should be brought to court and tried.
Do you think that will happen at all? Is there any sign of any sort of move in that direction going?
There is a significant thing happened 2 weeks ago when the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Human Rights announced an inquiry. The Pakistan government and many other governments have been urging the UN to take this issue on board, and they finally began so. This again will be a long process, but that is significant that the UN are now starting to look at this issue.
Well, that's good news. It's a step in the right direction, albeit far too late, I think, really. Because there's drone strikes happening in Afghanistan and Pakistan, but they've also been happening in a few other countries as well, and that's been the US again, hasn't it? It's in Yemen.
In Yemen and Somalia and Libya, and there have also been this year airstrikes in Mali and the Philippines. We're not quite sure whether they were drone strikes, unmanned aerial vehicles, or whether they were piracy. There's certainly the suspicion that they were drone strikes as well. And so the problem is that these strikes, this way of waging war is spreading, and the whole world is now becoming part of a battlefield. And that's one of the real significant dangers about this use of armed, unmanned systems.
I'm just amazed that these countries aren't taking it as an act of war. I mean, this is the US in Mali. Why are they in Mali bombing people there? Is it Al-Qaeda? Yes,
there is evidence that Al-Qaeda are operating in northern Mali and also in Yemen as well. But the politics, the geopolitics, geoglobal politics, and the local politics is very complicated, and it's not always clear who these individuals are. Sometimes they're claimed to be part of Al-Qaeda, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they are.
I guess, sort of going to the political issue, if the US are sending drones in to strike at these places, then politically they haven't got to explain why they're sending men in planes, potentially putting themselves at risk. You're not getting bodies back in bags, are you? You know, politically, is it seen as must be seen as a fairly easy sell to the public using drones rather than pilots?
Exactly. I mean, I think that's one of our primary concerns is that the using of drones lowers the political cost. I mean, I think since the Vietnam War, when war was really begun to be televised, and there was television coverage of young men and young women coming back in body bags. Since then, I think there's been a real dislike by the public to launching military intervention overseas and sending men and women overseas just to die. And I think there has been a real political cost to launching military intervention overseas. And it doesn't feel like that lately because there have been lots of wars over the last decade, but there's still a political cost to that. But when you take that cost away, when you take that risk away, it naturally lowers the political cost, and we'll see more military intervention using drones. And although it's very early in the drone war era, right, as you said, last year there were 6 countries that the US launched drone strikes in Iraq and Afghanistan, in Pakistan and Yemen, in Somalia and Libya. And many military commentators in the military journals wrote that this was a new thing, that it never happened before, that the US was involved in 6 conflicts simultaneously. So although it's early on in the drone war era, we're already seeing more warfare because of drones.
Is it just the US that are doing this at the moment? I know we're using drones in Afghanistan.
Yeah, there are 3 countries that have so far used armed drones: the US and the UK and Israel. Because
it's one of the manufacturers actually looking at the surveillance in the UK. There is it's an Israel manufacturer that's making, or some of the Israel manufacturers are backing the scheming to try and open up civilian airspace in the UK, which sort of takes us on to the bit that we have talked about before in the past.
Yep.
Is because the US are opening their or want to open their airspace by 2015, don't they? Civilian airspace.
It's been actually mandated. It's been written into law now. The drone lobby in the US had a really stunning success, and they boasted that they've virtually written the law. Earlier this year, in February 2012, a law, the Federal Aviation Authority Act, was passed. It was partly to do with the budget for the Federal Aviation Authority, but it was written into that act that they had to open US skies to drones by 2015, and that was stunning success. It was very, very short time to introduce these new systems. There are no proper controls or regulations in place, and there are serious civil liberties worries. And the pilots, the main pilot union in the US, is very concerned about this and campaigning to stop this because of safety concerns.
Yeah, it's mainly the police departments, isn't it, at the moment, I think, in the US that are operating it.
Yeah, as part of the process of introducing it, by 2015, anybody would be able to fly a drone. But at the moment, a number of police forces and the military are allowed to fly drones in the US. Yes.
So I wonder then if a similar sort of thing came into the UK, whether people like G4S Security would be able to do that if they were acting in capacity of a police force, I guess, because there was some talk about having drones at the Olympics, but I couldn't find anything to confirm that drones were actually used at the Olympics for that sort of...
No. I mean, I would be very surprised if they weren't. I must admit, I would be very surprised, but there has been no evidence. And the reason I would be very surprised is because that was cleared airspace. It was not civilian airspace, if you like. It was segregated airspace. And drones would have been allowed to have been used, but there has been no reports of them having been used. It's important to remember that already there are about 120 companies or public institutions that have permission now to fly drones in the UK airspace. the permission that they have is fairly restricted. They're not allowed to fly drones further than higher than 400 feet in the air, or more than 500 meters from the operator, and they're not allowed to go within 50 meters of any individual. But these institutions and private companies have permission already, and I think, as you said earlier, a number of police forces have begun to use them. I think most of them have at the moment stopped using them because of the restrictions. But as soon as those restrictions are changed, as soon as those restrictions are relaxed, they will certainly begin to use them.
There's a lobby, which is a collaboration between the industry, BAE, Rolls-Royce, Thales, Presidium, Coburn, that have been given £62 million. No,
yes.
I got the impression that £31 million had come from regional development funds and another 31 they'd put in themselves to, I guess, persuade the civil aviation authorities that drones or unmanned drones for surveillance use are safe. Where's that at the moment? Do we know how the civil aviation authorities reacted to any suggestions?
Yeah, I mean, the Civil Aviation Authority's concern or remit is looking at safety.
Right.
And they've been very strong, very challenging, rightly so, I believe, to Australia, which is the name of this program. As you say, it's a government and industry-funded program. And the aim of this program is to put in place the procedures and the technology and the regulations to allow drones to fly unregulated within the UK. And that's been going for 6 years, I believe. So it has come a long way, and they've actually begun earlier this year test flights using autonomous aircraft to test the technology. The main technology that you want to put in place is called sense and avoid. That's what the Civil Aviation Authority are insisting, that drones have this ability to sense and avoid other aircraft. And so Australia has been funded by you and me, by us taxpayers, to develop this technology to allow drones to fly safely in UK airspace. And of course, it will also be used on military drones as well. It's a big bonus to the companies that they will be able to use this funding to develop this technology, but they will also be able to use it in other areas. And Australia is due to come to end this latest phase of Australia, because there's already been phase 1, we're in phase 2. Phase 2 is coming to an end towards the end of this year, early next year. And the indication is that it will continue into the future, but that's all we know at the moment.
So when you say autonomous, that's nobody flying them. They've basically got a mind of their own. They're looking at the information they're seeing on the ground and reacting to it intelligently.
Absolutely, yes. There is no pilot controlling it from the ground. They take off by themselves. They fly pre-programmed missions. Pilots can then intervene if they need to, but I think the indication is that they won't regularly do this. And they're seriously talking about autonomous planes flying passengers. But I think that they recognise that the public would be very sceptical about that at this stage. So their main aim is to get cargo flights to these unmanned systems to fly cargo, and then eventually people will, they think, accept drones.
So how long is there any indication of when we can look forward to autonomous cargo planes? They've not actually developed the technology as such. We're saying they're testing them at Salisbury Plain at the moment.
They're testing them in various places, but the aim is to have it ready by 2016. That's the European Union have put in place a work plan to have them flying freely by 2016. A lot of people are fairly sceptical about that date and think it might slip to 2020. But it's not if at the moment, it's when.
Yeah, that's right. It was Alex Marshall, who's I don't know what he is in the Hampshire Police. I guess he's one of the higher bodies. Was in the paper, I think, on the 1st of October, trying to sell it to the public by sort of saying, "Oh, we'll catch criminals. We're going to protect you all, and we can do this borderless patrolling." And I think, I guess from a monetary point of view, I can say, "Oh yeah, borderless patrolling, that makes sense." And you can sort of see there's a good idea in using drones, but we have not, as a human race, got any sort of track record that shows that we're responsible enough to use this technology, this surveillance technology, responsibly. I just don't think we can do it. But this is what our children are going to grow up in, is this society, and we've just got to try and get it right, I think, with people like yourself questioning and holding these people accountable for the technology they're putting out there. And I just wonder how this would go with our Data Protection Act, because at the moment, if you are being surveilled by CCTV in the area that you're in, there needs to be notices up to let you know that you're being surveilled. But I guess if these drones are coming up in the air, that sort of privacy, liberty issue isn't going to be there unless they change the Data Protection Act. I don't know if they've thought of this, but certainly, as and when I start seeing drones in the air, I'll be making complaints to the Information Commission, because I do not want to have myself looked at. You can't do it if you want to put a camera into somebody else's property. You're not allowed to do that because it's in breach of the Data Protection Act. But I just wonder how they're going to get around this. It'll be interesting to see what they do, really.
Yes, and I think we need to be perhaps a bit more proactive and get involved in challenging this before we get to that stage.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the real, people say, well, what's the difference? There are police helicopters above our heads at the moment. There's two significant differences. One is the cost, to kind of, use a helicopter is, very expensive, and only a number of institutions can do that, primarily the police and the ambulance service and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Drones will be significantly cheaper, and there is nothing to stop any individual. It won't just be public institutions using them; there'll be private companies. And one of the key bodies that's really interested in this is the media. And we've already seen through the Leveson inquiry, through the hacking of Millie Dowler's phone, etc., how the media don't really care for these rules and regulations, as they're pursuing their story. So, getting the regulations in place, protecting the public security and protecting civil liberties is a crucial element of this. And unfortunately, that's not quite the right word, but neither the Civil Aviation Authority or Australia, which is this government and industry body that's pushing drones, they say that it's not their responsibility, it's not their remit, they don't have the resources to look at the civil liberties and privacy issues. So everybody's kind of backing away from the responsibility of doing this, while at the very same time pushing it forward. So there are some serious problems here that we need to challenge.
And it also begs the question that some of the drones is the size of the drones as well, and how big they are.
Yes, yeah, they come in all shapes and sizes. The latest drone that's been begun to be used in Afghanistan, the British drone, is called a Black Hornet, and it sits in the palm of your hand. It's a tiny nano drone, and they're not that expensive again, and they will certainly be being used by all sorts of individuals and companies here in the UK once they have permission to do so.
There were some reports of the small drones like that by some of the Occupy Wall Street people, whether or not they were there. I mean, I'm sure they might have been there and been used for surveillance, but if you can sort of see some of them, almost like insects, aren't they? I mean, literally like drones.
They are, and the these are the ones that we know about, and we certainly know that there is lots of research and development of much smaller drones, drones that are literally the size of insects.
Good grief.
I mean, these aren't. I should emphasise that these aren't produced at the moment that we know of. These are kind of being researched and developed, but they're less than a decade away. That's certain.
it's going to affect people's associations, I think, and also I think it's going to affect people's right to protest, because there's going to be consequences. You're going to be constantly watched, or you won't know if you're constantly watched. I mean, at the moment we know the internet's surveilled. We can make a choice of, I guess, email people or go in chat rooms, and the same thing with telephone calls. But to actually go somewhere and meet somebody, that's sort of our last freedom, isn't it? Really.
Yes, I think we're one of the most surveilled societies in the world. There are various statistics, various analysis showing that there are already something ridiculous like 22 million CCTV cameras in this country. But there is a significant difference in that if you're under surveillance in CCTV, you're in public space. Mm-hmm. But drones would be able to, of course, watch you in your private space, which is a real significant difference.
Yeah, and I guess if they're making them as small as an insect, you wouldn't be aware. I think you just have to maybe live the whole of your life being aware that you could be surveilled. And that would affect, I think, the whole human psyche, really, wouldn't it? Especially children. I guess the thing is that kids are so used to technology. They've got mobile phones and they have television remote controls, and this is just another level of technology to them. And they don't question, I don't think, as much as they should. But we should be making them aware. And I know from sort of doing some other sort of privacy and surveillance work that the use of CCTV cameras in school toilets have affected children's behaviour of when and how they go, or if they go to the toilet. Some children don't go at all. So it does affect them being surveilled like that. And this is the next generation that we're talking about. And I think we're sort of finding ourselves, if not enough of us are protesting about it, sort of sleepwalking to some sort of sci-fi movie, almost feels like. I was watching this 10 years ago.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that came out a few weeks ago about, surveillance cameras in school toilets. And my daughters said, oh, yeah, we had that at our school. And I was absolutely shocked. But they didn't seem to think it was significant because, as you say, they're kind of used to this technology.
Yes, they are used to it. I think the CCTV cameras in school toilets have been around for about 5 or 6 years now, so they can sort of look at the behaviour. But that's another topic of conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, George, would you like to ask anything?
Yeah, there was only a couple of things there that I covered everything that I picked up on, and one is going back to the military strikes in the different countries. Is that I think what people have to realise as well is the type of armaments that the drones have used, like the Hellfire missiles. These are all full of depleted uranium, and I know the casualties and the injuries resulting in the attacks, their figures say 1,400, that's in Pakistan. But it's the legacy of the likes of that. We've seen it certainly in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I think that should be we should bear that in mind. It's the aftermath as well of these weapons being used, as well as what you touched upon, is the dehumanisation of it all, of war in general. People don't see any of our guys getting killed or coming back in body bags, etc. And it is an easy sell to people to say that, yeah, well, these strikes, none of our troops are in danger. So it sort of like distances people in a sense. They don't see the devastation of the innocent people, the children, the families, and it does dehumanise war for me.
Absolutely, and really, at the moment, the war in Afghanistan only really makes the media when British troops are killed, and if British troops, aren't being killed or injured in these drone wars, there won't be any media coverage of these attacks at all, and it will become more and more remote from the public what's being done on their behalf.
So what's your goal, really, Chris and Alice? We can't uninvent the technology. I guess regulating it is our only hope, is it?
Well, I think so, but I think there's a serious concern about the use of autonomous drones, and I think that's I would argue that we can stop the use of armed drones. I mean, I think there's a whole pressure, it's going to be very difficult, but it wasn't that long ago that the military were, vehemently against the idea of, giving up landmines, giving up cluster munitions, and here we are a decade later, and they're gone. So, I think, now is the time to be arguing against the use of armed drones, and I think that there is serious concerns on many levels, humanitarian levels, legal levels, moral and ethical. But further beyond that, I think is the development of autonomous armed systems. And I know it sounds very much like Terminator and sci-fi and stuff like that, and people can kind of believe that you're just making all this stuff up. But there are serious military policy documents arguing that humans are the weakest link in the chain and that they must kind of lessen the human role in the kill chain. And I think that's very, serious, and we must really act to stop and prevent the development of autonomous weapon systems.
Yes, I mean, sorry, George, go on.
It's just to add to that, what Chris was saying, is that people tend to look at these things, and when you mention it to them, they do look at you as though you're making it up. But we only have to look at the surveillance systems we've got in place now. As you just mentioned over the ones in school, etc. The technology that's in a mobile phone now is unbelievable. We're going down the route of a cashless society. It's an old cliche, but it is Big Brother 1984. And these surveillance systems, the likes of the drones, the nano drones especially, it will make it a paranoid population where whether they are being surveilled by insect drones or small size drones, it will be in their mindset. That will be put in their mindset. We can see what you're doing, when you're doing it, where you're doing it, 24/7, and that is a deliberate, for me, that's a deliberate mindset to put them into, if you will.
I agree. It's we was looking at this a few weeks ago. I think I was on your website, Chris, and it was a Sunday afternoon, and I'd just found out, I sort of looked at the money side of things, that there's £62 million, and I thought, I wonder who's paying for that? And I was so angry, I went walking into the kitchen, waving this paper at my husband, saying, do you know that we're paying to be surveilled in our own society? And I think that's, the thing is that people don't know. I mean, I had to do a bit of digging to find out, but people don't know. And you get the police authorities, doing sound bites in newspapers, or like Chris says, you only get one side of the Afghan war we see is when one of our lot dies. We don't see it when the other lot dies, and people don't know. They're not making themselves aware, which is why I'm really pleased, Chris, you've come on and talked about it, because hopefully everybody that's listening will be well aware of the drone agenda, both military and civilian.
But I think we must remember that we are more powerful than we sometimes think. I think the drone lobby is very concerned about public opinion, is very concerned that there is a natural public skepticism and dislike of being surveilled. And they know that they have to go on the offensive, if you like, to persuade people to accept this. And it sounds ridiculous, but one of the things that they were talking about at a meeting, internal meeting, was, the idea of painting drones pink to make them more acceptable to the public. And it's ludicrous and laughable, but, I think it shows that they are concerned that the public won't accept this. And I think that kind of shows that we must, use the power that we have and challenge this.
Yeah, I think they will, because I think they'll bring it in, as they do with all of these systems. It's for our benefit, or we're fighting the war against terror, or it's to combat crime. And we know from their own figures, from the police authorities' figures, that since the introduction of the surveillance cameras, it hasn't really affected crime figures at all. Certainly hasn't reduced them. I think only last week I read a report from London where the surveillance cameras there, it's 3% of the crime that's been committed, where CCTV cameras are coming to play, and they're not acceptable in court unless they're absolutely spot on, the pictures. But that's the way it'll be sold to us. It's for your benefit. As it
Absolutely.
is.
Yeah.
People need to realise.
And the level of technology as well that they have is huge. I was reading in a magazine that they have something called the Gorgon Eye. They can point this camera or whatever it is, this surveillance at a whole city, and it can store something like 80 years worth of information about that city sort of on it as it's watching, and it can just pick up on the electricity, the telephone calls, the internet. And this is where we're sort of heading, and this is just the technology in one drone, on one city.
Now, the mobile phones don't be pinged as the terminology they use, wherever you are. They can ping you. They know you through GPS where you are. And these drones will have the same technology. We will be completely surveilled 24/7. We're not already.
So, Chris, if people want to know more about this, is yourself and your website, can you give those details out? Is that okay?
Yeah, certainly. There are two particular websites I to look at. Mine is the I maintain, which is dronewars.net, www.dronewars.net. And we're also part of a wider campaigning network called the Drone Campaign Network. And that too has a website, dronecampaignetwork.org.uk. So there's much more information, in-depth and discussion and comment and information there about the growing use of drones.
Brilliant. And you're on Twitter because Critical Mass follows you as well. So if they type in Drone Wars, I think they can probably find you, can't they?
They can indeed, yeah.
That's great. Well, I've sort of got everything I need to know to go and have a look at a bit more information, but I'm definitely going to keep an eye on the Australia program. That's sort of my thing is surveillance, but as well sort of keep looking at what's happening with the US. I had no idea that they'd gone into Mali. This is quite alarming, really, that countries don't have to declare war on people, but on other countries, but find it that are okay to go in and bomb them. It's a scary route going down that, I think, apart from the civilian loss of life. I think there's boundaries that are being stepped over.
Yeah, and the important thing is that people become, as you say, aware about this, and that's why it's important that there are programs on like this that are making people aware and challenging what's being done supposedly in our name.
Yeah, we're actually attacking and bombing sovereign states, as Pippa said earlier. If that was to happen in any European country or in the States, there'd be a declaration of war straight away.
Absolutely.
Hadn't the United States already used drones against its own people? I catch an article, it might have been on Alex Jones, on the border. They'd shot some people. I don't know, I'd have to find an article to verify that, but I did catch something on the internet that they had actually used drones and fired upon. Yes,
there was a use of a taser from a drone on an individual in the US. Yeah, that was the first time, I think.
And that's the start of the slippery slope, isn't it?
Yeah.
The acceptance of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it'd be worth looking into as well. Pippa is turning over a few stones and all these companies that are involved, because usually we know all the time we follow the money. There's probably some political or establishment figures involved in these companies who are making profits out of them, who have a self-interest in promoting the drones and the like. I imagine.
Yeah, there's money to be made in making warfare. Certainly, it's if you look at a pie chart of what us as a country spend on warfare, the biggest slice of it by far is on defence, and a tiny sliver goes to the NHS, and a tiny sliver goes to education. It's criminal. We should be investing in our youngsters. We should be investing in education. We should not be spending. Are they over £30 million a drone? These Reaper drones, Chris?
They're about $15 million to buy, but the actual maintenance and operational costs are much higher, and we don't know that. And we've already spent, as a UK, we've spent just over £2 billion on the drones that we've purchased and developing and testing other drones. And we're about to put pen to paper to spend another £2 billion on a new armed drone under the Scavenger program. It's a military program. So yes, there seems to be lots and lots of money for drones at the moment, not so much for health and social care and social services.
Absolutely correct. No, it's criminal, I think, anyway. But I take my hat off to you. You've done a great job, because you've certainly opened my eyes, and as a consequence, hopefully quite a few others as well. And thank you very much for coming on. I've really appreciated that, and we'll hopefully catch up sometime next year and have a discussion and see where we're at with Australia and also with the drones, and possibly with any court cases, hopefully successful, that individuals have been able to take against the US and the UK.
Great. I would be very happy to do that.
Thank you very much, Chris. It's been lovely.
Okay then.
Cheers.
Bye now.
You still there, Pippa?
Yeah, I'm still here.
If Chris can hear me, by the way, can you end the call from your end, please, Chris? We can't do it this end.
Will do. Bye now.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, still there, Pippa?
That was fascinating, wasn't it?
He certainly knows the stuff, Chris, doesn't he? And I'd say that's how Tim knows doing a lot of campaigns and a lot of protests up and down the country about this. And it's coming from the point of view of the human aspect, and also the aspect of the surveillance, again, being imposed on us.
I didn't have any idea that the drones, they were working on the autonomous drones. I knew they were certainly looking and developing the drones to come into civilian airspace. I mean, and I guess the next stage on from that surveillance is what's happened in the USA, is the use of taser with drones. And that's really just treating us like cattle. I mean, some would argue we probably are anyway. But that's just, I mean, this is what we can probably look forward to in the next 30 to 50 years, if we don't do something about it and make ourselves aware. Sorry.
No, I just don't think it'll be that long. I think this is coming to a city near you soon. I mean, we've had it in Liverpool, we've already tested the drones, and if you look at another application of it, there'll be small drones flying around city centres. Why have the police vans using up those resources for cutting down on the police anyway, when you can have a drone surveilling, and if anybody gets out of hand, just taser them. Yeah. Easy, isn't it?
Thinking if you're going to have a drink now. While nobody's looking at me.
Unless, as he said, I don't want too many when you get tasered by the road.
Oh, dear me. You couldn't make it up, could you?
No, that's how fast it's moving.
Well, do you not think, though, there's a certain amount of creating the mindset for it? Because if you do talk to anybody about it, they'll say, you're a nutter, you're paranoid. You know, that's not happening. Well, the best place to wrap up a truth is in a fiction, and look at things like iRobot and Terminator, and it softens it up and it puts very smartly the idea of having that technology. I mean, if we'd gone from absolutely nothing at all to drones in the sky with tasers, people would be up in arms, isn't it? It's a drip, drip, drip. And everybody is too interested in, and obviously rightly so, going to it, paying the mortgage, you know, putting food on the table, and just making ends meet. And hopefully shows like all the CMR shows are doing are sort of, you know, waking people up a bit and just saying, look, hang on a minute, just have a listen to this. You know, it's really important. This is really important stuff, because I want my kids to grow up in a world where if they see something wrong, they're comfortable to protest about it without consequence. And when we get to a point in society where you can't protest because there's a consequence, because you're that surveilled that they'll come and knock on your door, or, you know, somebody might just disappear. It is literally like living in 1984, and that's when we've not got the power. I think at this point in time, as a population, we've got a huge amount of power, but they're sucking it from us, and we need to be so aware of that, I think.
More aware now than at any other time in the past, I think. Or this actually get too far down the road that we can't do anything about it. We've got the power to do something about this.
Well, with the drones, with the drones bombing people in Pakistan and now Mali and Yemen, there's a saying that I've seen on the internet, sort of, it was something about the Germans, when the Nazis came for the Jews, I did not say anything, and it was going to happen. It's going to get to us, and who's going to be left?
Until there's only you left, and then as the various goals, then they came for me because there was no one else left. And that's what happens if we let it get to that stage. Hopefully we won't. So I think there's enough good people about.
Actually, I don't want my tax money to fund these. I don't want my tax money to fund the killing of children. That's that's absolutely inexcusable. And yet we're all doing it. We're all complicit in this because we don't know. It's not reported. Or if it is, it's in an obscure website, or good people like Chris are sort of getting up and making us all aware. So good for him.
Excellent. Okay then. So what's happened there? You fell off the stool again?
Slightly moved I must have an extra sensitive microphone on this computer. Just moved my computer about an inch. Sorry.
No problem. Okay, I'm going to put a song on, and after the song, I'm going to have a little look into this European Union thing. And you still there, Pippa? Have you gone?
Yeah, no, I'm still here.
Paying a note. And I'll probably be bringing Dave on in the second hour. Well, we're already into the second hour. We'll be bringing Dave on as well. Have a little chat with him, see where he's up to, what he's been looking into. So okay there, my love?
Will.
Okay, just going to put a song on. Okay, welcome back, folks. As I said before, we had a big day. I don't normally go into stories of the weekend in the news items because a lot of it is basically bumped from the mainstream media. There are some stories that are worth picking up on. And I think anyone who knows me or anyone who's listened to the previous shows is that I'm big on this. I believe that Britain itself is a great nation. It's the country itself and the people of Britain. But we've been misrepresented over the years, and especially since 1972 when we went into the European Union, or the Common Market as it was called then. I do believe that what two world wars couldn't achieve was achieved through the back door by our citizens, politicians, and the establishment of this country. We've sold the country down the river, in my eyes. I think it was a vote in the House of Commons this week whether to increase the millions that we pay into the European Union, or for there to be a cap on it when Cameron goes to Brussels. I think it's later this week. Early next week, I think it is. He goes to Brussels to further sell what already has been sold in this country, and increase the coffers that are given to them from here. Just a couple of figures when I was looking at. Since 1979, this is when the contribution started, Britain into the European Union. There's been actually £228 billion ploughed into it from this country. The benefits back to this country have been 143 billion in that time up until this is going up until last year, the end of last year. So that's 85 billion shortfall. We've never ever got anything of benefit from being in the European Union. The figures generally agreed on is that 80% of our laws are now made by come direct from Brussels, the European Union. It is a dictatorship because we can't get out of it. We never voted into it, and we never voted them into power in the European Union and Brussels. The bureaucrats that are there and the technocrats basically appoint themselves. It's an old boys club. They're unelected, and they're immovable as regards to the ballot box. There's no such thing as a ballot box in with regard to the European Union. I've gone through before about the treasonous act of 5 leaders of this country, Tony Blair signed 2 of them, the treaties, 6 treaties that were signed, and also that they received the equivalent of a £10 million private bonus for signing them cities, the European cities. Basically sold the country out. For me, it's treason. We no longer control over our own military, our armed forces. What the United Nations or NATO say goes. They take the power from Britain itself to declare war and to go to war against a nation. We've seen that over and over again. That's just become the norm now. I'm just going to play a little clip that I put together today. It's only 3.5 minutes long. And it's basically, this reminds me when I seen this story. The MPs voted actually against the coalition government. I think it was 307 votes against 294. So Cameron and Clegg are a bit of a pie in the face, if you will, off their own parties and obviously off the opposition parties, despite what the rich try to get them to vote in favour of the government and to back Cameron. It could be that some of them have actually got a pound of conscience, or to me, it's more that they're a little bit wary of the voters because you know the feeling with regards to the European Union. Most of the countries against it, always have been. It's always been railroaded through. So it is a little bit of a reminder to them, and I think there is a few twitchy bums, as we say in the House of Commons at the moment, in particular probably Cameron and Clegg. But I'm just going to play a little. This is an audio clip with a bit of music behind it, and I'll make comments after this. Okay, folks, welcome back. The reason I played that, by the way, that's I done a show a couple of weeks ago, pre-recorded a show with Tim Watson from Orion Radio across the Atlantic, and he went into a theory about there's codes in Shakespeare's work, or it turns out that the De Vere's work. And for me, that's John O'Gorman's England speech on his deathbed from Richard II, Act 2. The music's Nimrod, Enigma Variations, Delga. The reason I played it is because, for me, as I just said, this country has been sold down the river. When I did the show with Tim, he said that there's a lot of prophecy, apart from the commentary of the day, there's a lot of prophecy in those works, and to me, over 400 years later, it does seem to have come true. With a couple of lines in there, in that speech, dear for her reputation throughout the world, is now leased out, like to a tenement or pelting farm. This country has been leased out, it's been given over to a foreign power, for me, the European Union, without a shot being fired, without a whimper. It's just gone. It's been handed over. There's another couple of lines in there that for me ring true today, over 400 years later. Whose rocky shore beats back the envious siege of watery Neptune, is now bound in with shame, with inky blots and rotten parchment bonds. Well, that for me is the treaties that have been signed, that have signed this country away. I'm very patriotic, mate. I love this country. I would die for this country, no problem at all. But I would not raise a finger to defend those who have actually given the country away, who've ceded the sovereignty of this country. I think all of us would have that sentiment. The line that says it to me as well, a couple of lines that says it to me in that quote as well, is that England that was once to conquer others has made a shameful conquest of itself. I think that says it all, has made a shameful conquest of itself. no other foreign nation has invaded or managed to bring to bear Britain and England in particular, and it's been done. That's really all I wanted to say on it. I just want people to take a few minutes to think about it, what's happened to this country, and how important it is that we do fight against what's happened, what's been done by those who have been in control. I think I'm waffling a little bit much on that one now. So, Pippa, are you still there? Or I don't know whether Pippa's still there or she's gone.
No, I'm still here.
Still there?
I'm just scribbling and making a few notes there. I really like that, well, not jingle. It's not jingle, is it? The audio you just played with the Nimrod at the back of it. Really moving.
Yeah, it just struck me when I read the story of after this week about the vote on the when Cameron goes to Brussels over the increase. It's £40 million. The totals are staggering. You know, when you start looking at them, how much this country pays into the European Union and what we get in return. That's without, I say, all the laws and legislation that affects us every single day, and it really, well, you can tell it really sticks in my craw. How a nation, this nation in particular, can just, you know, just basically lay down and be trodden over by ones that we fought for 1,000 years, whether rightly or wrongly, that who tried to conquer the nation, and they've conquered it back door. The only thing that hasn't happened is that from the last two wars is that we're not talking German. That's the only thing. We're not talking a foreign language. Mm-hmm. Everything else has been ceded. Sorry.
Anyway, we also give this amount of money away to an organisation whose accounts I don't think have ever been signed off.
No.
It's just a bottomless pit. We keep paying them the money. They're not accountable. We don't know where the money's going. They're so fraudulent. It's unbelievable. But yet, year in, year out, we still pay the money, and year in, year out, they still take it and do whatever do they do with it. And, you know, apart from the rights and in law that we've sort of given away, because the way I understand it is that our acts we can act upon in this country, our legislation, but ultimately EU law, I think I'm right in saying umbrellas whatever act we've got here. So if we don't, if we can challenge our own laws against the EU laws, I think, and see if our laws are stable enough, which I guess could work well. If it's a tool, isn't it? But you know, I
think in some ways, you know, and Rob and Dave were on a couple of weeks back. I know Rob's doing a hell of a lot of work with regard to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but he's also brought into play the European Convention on Human Rights, and that is using their laws, or not their laws, their acts and their legislation against them. And there is, while it's in place, there are avenues we can go down where we can go, okay, then you've imposed this on us, but we can also, as Rob Freeman says, mirror it back on you and take their legislation and use it against them. Over the driving licence, a Future Solution punched out, it was MP a couple of weeks ago. That's through European legislation. We don't require a driving licence to produce our own vehicle in the UK. So there are things that we can take from it and use, but it's just the as I say, the giving up without an argument, a shot fired or anything. Absolutely no defence at all of the realm, as far as I'm concerned. I've got a feeling, I spoke to Paul about this through the week, and I spoke to the people about it. I've got a feeling that this judgedness with regards, I'm still not fully convinced that the royalty in this country have allowed this to happen and been totally compliant with it.
Well, our royalty are German descent, aren't they? They're anything but English at the moment. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if they've been compliant in it. I think given some of the agendas that lie with that particular family.
Yeah. There's other things that are coming about that I've seen that makes me sway a little bit differently from that as well. I don't know, just can't really make my mind up for sure on which way, whether the people have been separated deliberately via government or the state from the monarchy, and the monarchy may be sort of like in a situation that they're powerless, just basically figureheads and used as a tourist attraction, or whether there is that collaboration or that acceptance of it. I don't know, just certain things. Somebody pointed out to me a couple of weeks ago that Prince Charles had been writing letters. He's an avid letter writer, apparently, and prolific, and that he's continuing writing letters and complaining and asking for explanations of why this country's sovereignty has been ceded so easily to a foreign power. And up until I think it was last week, his letters that were going to be published in the Guardian, or some of them, were blocked by the Attorney General, and then letters weren't allowed to be published. Now, for me, if the Attorney General of this country can stop maybe who could be the future king of this country, or whether he will be or not, but a member of the royal family, from publishing letters that were meant for the public, to the Prime Minister, to the House of Lords, etc. That, to me, that's what makes me sway the other way sometimes. Have they got any power?
Well, actually, the Queen does have power. She has to sign off every single act of Parliament, and she doesn't have to. She's never not done it. But if she didn't want to, she doesn't have to. As I say, she's never done it. She's always signed, and they've come into law. She has to do that. But maybe that's one of the reasons why Charles isn't on the throne at the moment. Could be. Would he sign what he's told to sign? And maybe he'll be bypassed and he'll go to his son. But if he's writing letters like that aren't safe to be published by the Attorney General's point of view, then maybe he won't make it to the throne, because I think that's one of the few powers they've probably still got left, is to not enact legislation if they don't like it. As I say, the Queen's never not signed it, but she does have that option, I believe. I might be saying that.
It just makes me think at times what actually is going on, and I don't suppose we're privy, we're not going to get to know that.
But if you take a look at the European website, the European Union website, and you read some directives, it's enough to put you off looking.
Unbelievable, isn't
it? There's text after text after text after text, and to try and find what you want, you could just be at it for hours and hours and hours. And there are some really good MEPs actually in Parliament, and if anybody's got any questions, I've used my MEP to great effect on a couple of occasions, and they've been brilliant. Use your MEP and start to ask them questions, because they're there for you, and you're paying for them.
People should do.
And they're really important actually, and they can be quite effective. And if you want to know what's going on in Europe, ask them, and they'll tell you. My MEP is Godfrey Bloom, who has a little bit of reputation to be a very plain-speaking person, and I find him a breath of fresh air, because he says exactly what's on his mind. And I've asked him a few things about what's sort of gone in Europe with sort of surveilling children and things like that, and he's been brilliant and got information back to me. So, yeah, give your MEP a try. And you've got to bet most people probably don't know who their MEP is, but if you want to know what's going on, say, for example, with the driving licence thing, and you want to save yourself the days of trawling through the EU website, get them to do it. They'll know their way around, and I think that it could be quite a good thing to do.
Yeah, should chase up their MPs. That's what they're there for. That's what they're employed for. It's getting paid out to the public coffers as well. We'll put on the song on. Pippa, while I've got this song on, I'm going to bring Dave on.
Right.
I think I've got him up there.
Brilliant. Cheers.
Okay, welcome back. Pippa, still there?
Yes, I'm still here. Hello.
And is that Dave? One of the around in the background I can hear. Hello, Dave.
Good evening, George. Good evening, Pippa. You all right?
Yes, fine, thanks. How are you? Good to speak to you.
Not too bad. Thanks very much. To be honest, the last 20 minutes I didn't hear the show because I was actually on the phone talking to someone else. But the first hour I thought was very, very interesting about the drones. Especially the fact that they can be remotely controlled from thousands of miles away. And of course, we won't hear about these things because you can guarantee we're paying for them. But it's more or less like on a need-to-know basis, and they don't want you to know what's actually going on half the time, you know. What was you going to say? What have you just been talking about anyway, George?
It was just the EU vote in the Commons this week, where the cameras going over to Brussels to give them more money, and the vote went against them actually, that they want to put a cap on it, or a freeze actually, to keep it as it is, which is still far too much. Shouldn't really be paying anything this way anyway, shouldn't be in it at all. But he did want to go over there and offer them more money, give them more money out of the coffers to them. But it went against them, and it really annoys me, just sticks in my throat the way that this country's been given away. And that's all it was. It was a bit of a rant by me and a waffle by me, Dave, actually.
No, but you know, because a lot of our laws are made in Brussels now, and we've lost the area. And what happens is, it's like, you know, the meetings that they have in Rio every 5 years. They might send a person to these meetings who's an MEP, and he'll have a big thick document that he's supposed to read through, and there might be nothing in that, and he's signing away. But slowly but surely, over time, over years, you know, we're losing our democracy. Everything's going to them. The power is going to the hub of Brussels. And as you're saying, they're expected to pay more money out, but they've voted against it, haven't they? So I don't know what he's going to do. He's going to go in time. You know.
The joke was the last time I was over there over the Eurozone crisis, and when he came back, the press here was saying, holding him up as a hero, saying, "Well done, Cameron. You stops the idea of a Tobin tax or a Robin Hood tax that they were calling being introduced." All he went over there for, and what he done, was protect his paymasters, i.e. the City of London. That's all he done, was protect their interests. And he came back here in a blaze of glory. I told Merkel and Sarkozy, as it was then, before Hollande got in power, and it was laughable. You know, he was over there waiting for the bankers. That's all he went on.
That's right, yeah. It's the banks and the corporations, that's all the support. And at the end of the day, I mean, the way the crisis with the euro is now, because Greece and Spain are just a festering store, it's not going to get any easier. It's going to get worse and worse until they actually come to some sort of decision. I don't know what decision they're going to make, but it'll be crucial when it finally gets sorted out, because it can't go on the way it is, the financial crisis, you know.
I think it's been made to set up to fail, hasn't it? It's been the long-term agenda, and America have just hit whatever trillion amount of pounds. It possibly can't pay it back whatsoever, and there's no essence of us paying it back anyway. I mean, we know they're cutting down sort of spending on you know, they're cutting down bits of the army, but they're still pouring money into. Chris was just saying these 5 new drones that we're getting, £2 billion. Why are we spending money on drones when we can be, you know, paying off our debts and investing it in the infrastructure of the country? Right. But that's not the agenda, is it?
The thing is, they're spending our money on things that they won't even tell you about. Secret black projects, such as these drones. Okay, you may find out in the media that they bought so many drones, but what about the stuff that you don't know about? Yeah. How much they're actually involved in there? You know, as we've talked about in previous shows about geoengineering, it's costing billions and billions of pounds a year. Mm-hmm. Besides all the secret stuff that they've got, you know.
And it's all profits for their paymasters, all the arms companies. We know all the usual suspects who are involved in from the States to here. But all the banks are behind them, making profits on it. War is big business, we know that. And the likes of this, the drone technology, anything, that's what I said before, it'd be worthwhile turning over a few stones to see what's underneath them, with connections between any politicians or the establishment and the companies that are manufacturing and
That's right.
producing these drones.
You can guarantee, George, there'll be a conflict of interest somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
Someone will have inside information and know that, such people as, BER systems or something?
BAE, yeah.
Systems.
Rolls-Royce.
Well, they actually were instrumental in building the HARP facility and all.
Mm-hmm.
And you can guarantee they're into it. You got the hands in many different pots. And it's, as you say, it might be worth looking into that. Who's behind the drones? Who's building the drones? Who's making the money? Who's working for them? Who's pushing them forward? And you probably will come up with some answers. As they say, follow the money.
Yeah, well, it came about over the climate scare, the global warming. Al Gore made hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
The same over the TSA installation of the scanners in the airport. I think it was George Soros's company was behind that, or one of them. All the ones who are pushing for this technology, same as with the drones. You will find the connection. You'll find the UK connection. Wouldn't surprise me if it goes right up to Cameron. Probably Osborne's family will be involved somewhere along the line. They've all got the fingers in the pies, and as Alex would say on the razor's edge, they'll piss in the same pot as well. That's what it is.
Well, that guy Al Gore, didn't he get a prize? What's it?
Pulitzer Prize, yeah.
And actually, in all seriousness, what he was trying to do was push carbon tax credits. Yeah. But people are the wise to that now. That the global thing, it was. Well, I read it online 16 years ago. It was exposed as a hoax. They perpetuated the hoax that this global warming is. It turns out it's cyclical. It comes and goes. You know what I mean? Things go around.
But also, other planets in the solar system, other planets in the solar system are also warming up. Whatever's happening is happening to the solar system as a whole. It's not what we're doing. It's nothing to do with what we're doing. Yeah.
Well, I was led to believe. I think we touched on this last week that something from the galactic centre is heating all the planets and the part of the galaxy that we're in, and it's perturbing the sun, and the sun's having an effect on our magnetic field, and also the inner core, which actually is melting the ice caps from beneath, because you're getting action underwater, like these underwater volcanoes.
Yeah.
They're actually heating the floor of the oceans up in certain places, and that's why the ice caps could be melting. One of the reasons, of course, there's other reasons as well, CO2 build up as well. But it's not as bad as what they're saying.
CO2 does occur, and also as well, the magnetic north has moved quite a lot in recent times, and is constantly moving, and so much so the planes and satellites have had to readjust because it's drifting away from the pole. So something's happening. But sorry, George, this is almost like another show again, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, we just go where it takes us, though. We just go with the flow. That over the ice caps. I mean, one of the best authorities on the global warming scare is Lord Christopher Moulton, and his research, his scientific research is unbelievable. And there's a associate of his, a great website. Anybody wants to find out about any of this stuff, is called What in the World. The man's, I can't think of his first name, but his second name is Watts. Not Alan Watts, the researcher, but it's the same name, WAT. And the website, What's in the World, and on there it says, the ice caps are basically seasonal. They will shrink in the hot weather, and that's when a few years ago the BBC were pushing it big time, and they would show you footage of ice caps crashing into the sea, things like that. And then when in the winter time, the ice caps just grew back again. In fact, they grew back more than he had done for the previous, I think it was 30 or 50 years. If you're looking to Christopher Moulton's, mate. It's just absolutely not. It's more money, and it goes back to Agenda 21. That was.
I'll tell you what, I've seen some films of Lord Christopher Moulton, and he's a fantastic speaker. I haven't actually seen him live, but I've actually seen him online. And there's one particular video where he actually gets a piece of chalk and a blackboard, and he goes on about this global warming. And he said to combat global warming, it costs so many £1 trillion a year. And he went through it. It took him about 20 minutes to explain why, even if we did have global warming, it'd be a total waste of time and money trying to stop global warming. He said it's just a waste of time. So to take it down by 1 degree, the whole planetary, it was too hot by 1 degree, so much money and take so long that it just wouldn't be viable anyway. It would be impossible to do. So what he's saying, the whole thing is a complete myth. It's a great video. I'll send you that, George, when I find it.
I've got it, because I'll tell you why, because his conclusion was that even if all the global warming pushes were right, if the scientific evidence was right, which we know from the East Anglia University leaked emails, that it was all fabrication.
That's right.
But even if their own figures were right, it'd be an increase of between 0.5 and 1 degree. Now, as he said, that's phenomenal. That is, you just lay back and enjoy a little bit more sunshine, and what we do get, and also with Christopher Moulton as well. He was really originally one of my first guests that was going to be on the show, but at the time he was actually at one of the conferences. He
would have been in Rio, wouldn't he?
Yeah, well, he ended up barring from the conferences because he just turned up and he had all the scientific data from legitimate scientists who were in the pay of the United Nations, and he got to one stage where they barred him from the conferences, and he hired a small plane and actually parachuted in and gate crashed the conference. And the video of that, bless him, he looks a bit weird anyway, but when he's on that, he's strapped to a parachutist, and the way he's coming down, the forces, the G-forces in space, it's like if anybody wants to get that online of him parachuting in the conference.
Have a look at that.
But he did, he just done it. But I'm still chasing that up. He'll probably be a guest soon, Christopher Moulton. Lovely man.
I guess you wouldn't be able to get a word in, George. He'd just speak for 2 hours. It's unbelievable. He'd be like David Icke. He'd just carry on. I know we've only got a few minutes left. What I wanted to touch on was Hurricane Sandy. Yeah. Allegedly, I've got a little thing here I'll put on the chat box. It's been proven that they've used not only chemtrails and chem bombs to actually direct this hurricane to where it actually finished up, to where it normally does finish up, which is the Gulf of Mexico, normally around that way, isn't it? And using HAARP.
Yeah.
Now, HAARP is the High Frequency Aerial Research Program, but there's many different HAARP facilities worldwide, and they can be used in unison to do all sorts. Mm-hmm. And one of them is direct hurricanes. Besides, there's many other things like they're in Alaska, Puerto Rico, Brazil, Peru. The Kingdom's got one in Wales, Norway, Russia, India, China, Australia, Japan. They're everywhere, and it's using the different types of frequency and agitation. They can actually use their magnetic field and everything, and the chemtrails to direct these things and use as what they call a force multiplier, so they can make things a lot worse. Now, there was a cold front coming from at the Arctic, and also down the west side of America. So they've used this from not from Cuba, a bit further down. Where's those? There's a set of islands anyway, and you reckon they've used that there, and it's on video. They've got the spikes on the video to show that something was actually being used, and it can only be HAARP. On this particular thing I've put on the chat box now, if somebody wants to take a look at it, you'll see what I'm talking about. But you won't hear nothing about it in the media. It's all about these poor people, which is obvious. Like, there's 60, 70 people dying, and probably going to be a lot more. And they're devastating. There's billions and billions of pounds worth of damage. But it was almost as if it was orchestrated. And a lot of people are saying this online and in the different web pages I'm involved with, you know. I don't know, what do you think about it, George? Anyway.
Well, I'll tell you something now. I think it was either the beginning of last week or maybe the week before now. I got a message via Skype from a friend in the States who said to me, at the time, the commentators, even in America, were saying, oh, this is going to be to use the phrase storm in a teacup. It's not going to be as bad as when Hurricane Sandy comes in. It's not going to be as bad as it's being made out. Now, he told me at the time, researchers had said the HAARP readings were through the roof, they were astronomical. But also,
right.
He said to me, he said, watch out for this Halloween. He said, this is going to be a horror show. He told me today, he said, it's going to land on the 30th for the devastation to take place on Halloween itself. He said that it'll affect millions upon millions of people. There'll be a lot of casualties. And he also said, now we will know this by next Tuesday, he said it will be used as a precursor to bring in martial law and state of emergency will be declared, which I think Obama has, and FEMA will come in and take control, and also that they will postpone the American elections, which is due for next Tuesday, I think, and use it as that is the excuse to bring in martial law.
Well, that's what I heard as well, that they were going to use this possibly to stop the elections or postpone them, because they reckon Obama might have lost the election, but also they bring in martial law. They're looking for an excuse to bring in martial law.
Yeah.
And these FEMA camps, there's over 800 FEMA camps in America. That's over 13, 14 for every state in America, and yet, even though there's been terrorist attacks and natural disasters before, none of these FEMA camps have ever been used to help people.
No.
It's almost as if they're going to be used for something else.
I did say to me that the New Orleans one, Hurricane Katrina, that was like the better test for them. That was to see how they could bring it into place, and they were going in there and shooting people, you know, in New Orleans, and they were getting herded into semi-FEMA camps, if you will. They were getting herded into stadiums, you know, so all the implications are there for it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you another thing. Hurricane Sandy was also a code to supposedly a theoretical event that was supposed to happen in 1997. I'm just going to see if I can find this piece online, but it's there in black and white. It was called Hurricane Sandy, and it was said to hit where it did hit this particular time. So it's almost like this is being played out for real, or something that was supposed to be an exercise back in 1997. It's all down in black and white in military files. It's unbelievable, you know.
Well, he also told me that was that in the middle of July this year, there's always an exercise that they do.
When something happens,
with FEMA, the Homeland Security, etc., all of the major players, and it was called Vigilant Guardian. That was the name given to the exercise, Vigilant Guardian. Now, an exercise took place 9/11, and that was called Vigilant Guard. Now, if that's a coincidence, it's a coincidence, but it just seems a little bit strange that that disaster, if you like, happened. Vigilant Guard was the exercise that was taking place. July this year, Vigilant Guardian, another exercise. I know this is taking place. Obviously, not putting this down as a terrorist attack, but for me, it's a local thing.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It's just,
wasn't it quite a big cyclone over?
I'm just going to.
Sorry, I was going to say there's been a fairly hefty cyclone over in India, has there? I think I got something on the opposite side of the world, so almost balancing up what's going on. And but we don't hear about that. I mean, authors on the media, we didn't really hear about how devastated the Caribbean was, because there's been a huge loss of life over there, and their economy, you know, they'll be so much longer getting themselves back on their feet. We only seem to be interested in nice Western city dwellers like New York. city rather than actually being considered with communities that don't recover from something like this.
Yeah.
Shame on the media.
You're right there, Pippa, because I only heard about what happened in where was it? Where was it you just said?
I think it was in the Caribbean.
Sorry, I just missed that. Yeah, where that. That's right. Sorry, yeah, where that happened in the Caribbean first, and a few people died there. I didn't see anything at all about that. It was all about that it was gaining momentum, and it was shifting northeastwards, and it was going to hit New York, New Jersey, around that way, and all that was played into the background. And I did read something about the Indian, whatever they call it, typhoon or something, but I haven't gone deeply into it. I haven't seen nothing on the news about it, though.
No, I caught it. I can't even think where I caught it now, but I can remember thinking, oh, that's interesting, because when you're playing around with the weather, you're not creating energy, or just all you're doing is simply moving energy from one place to the next. So if we're messing around with this hurricane and we're chem-bombing it, and which I saw the video for that, which was just quite jaw-dropping. I mean, now you can't watch that particular video and not know what's going on. I mean, clouds just don't suddenly create themselves at the speed those clouds did, because they've obviously been planted there.
Okay, listen, guys. Sorry, guys. I've got the lady just come up on the studio. I've got 60 seconds. Go. Okay. So can I tell you, I'm going to have to bring you on a bit earlier next week, or if you're around. I never do, if that's okay.
All right, sure.
I'm sorry to say. There we go.
Yeah,
I'm going to get cut off.
Take it easy, mate. Yeah, nice to talk to you, Pippa.
Yeah.
See you, David. I'll catch up with you. Pippa.
All right, bye-bye. Yeah. Bye-bye for now.
Bye, David.
See you, David. Pippa, I'll catch you later on.
Yeah, will do.
Thanks for that.
Sure, mate.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Good day, public. We are anonymous. Operation Jubilee, 5th of November, 2012. Gather peacefully at the Parliament Building, London, to declare the true Jubilee. Cancel all debt. Stop war. Redistribute the land and eliminate poverty.
It's time.
With enough faith, united together we can move a mountain. It's going to take all of us. We are all anonymous. It's time to stand up for yourself, your family and your country. Show up and count yourself in the 99% anonymous millions. There can be no forgiveness without true and full repentance. If you do not repent, we cannot forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.